Very good.
Give me 1 second. We should be seeing it now. Go.
And this is the Wisdom Table coming to you from the Grand Houses Housing Development in Harlem, USA at 125th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. I'm your host, Brother Leroy, actually co-host to workshop of women, senior women who are dedicated to bringing information of importance to our audience in the The Wisdom Table does not reflect the views, attitudes, whims, deeds, or any other proclivities of the management of this housing development, NYCHA Housing, nor does it reflect anything on the resident council, which has been so well in having us as guest programming on the station, Grand Houses Community Radio. Our guest today is a young lady who is extremely valuable to not only to the community, but to the listening audience that plugs in on her podcast every Sunday and views her podcast replays on YouTube, the ones they can find. We're speaking of Dr. Jennifer Daniels. She's based in Panama, and we have asked her on to give an update on COVID, specifically starting with the area called comorbidity. And our attempt is to, if people are comorbid, then what are things that they can do to build their immune system to prolong their life? So, Dr. Jennifer Daniels, thank you for joining us on the Wisdom Table.
You're welcome. You are welcome. All right. So first of all, let's investigate what this morbid situation is. And you need to understand, really get a grip on this. So a comorbid condition is another condition that could be as responsible or more so than the cause of death. So if someone has a comorbid condition, that means they have a condition which is a likely cause of death. So you have to let that sink in. So what they're telling you up front, they're telling you, but asking you to not believe it, is that the virus does not kill anyone. People who have conditions that will likely lead to death soon, when they do die, they just tack the COVID label on them. So if COVID was truly a deadly virus, or if it is truly a deadly virus, then we would rightfully only be able to count the deaths it caused in people who were not likely or about to die of other things.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have somebody who is walking across the street, they're HIV positive, and they're hit by a car. So what was the cause of death here? Oh, and by the way, they're COVID positive. If you use today's terminology, the cause of death was COVID. So if, for example, a guy and his wife get into a domestic dispute, she grabs a butcher knife, she slices his carotid artery, kills him, and he happens to be COVID positive, COVID is the cause of death. Are you with me?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So now what they're saying to you is they're saying those identical situations, but only instead of the butcher knife or the automobile, there are other medical conditions that accelerated the person dying, and the person happens to be COVID positive. So
Mm-hmm.
the COVID did not kill that person. So for
Right.
that person with a comorbid condition, there is no new news. You know, pull yourself together, get rid of your type 2 diabetes, eat what you're supposed to be eating, do the right thing. So there's no additional risk of death because you're COVID positive. In fact, if you're COVID positive, your chance of dying are actually less than if you're COVID negative. So
Mm-hmm.
a COVID negative individual in the United States in the year 2019 had a probability of death of 0.009, also known as 0.9%. If you are
Hmm.
COVID positive in 2020, your chances of dying are 0.2%, literally one fourth of if you're COVID negative. So if you're COVID positive, statistically, just looking at statistics, yeah, right, those statistics, then your chances of dying are actually less than if you're COVID negative.
Okay, let me play this back to you. And I'm playing it back to you based on a doctor in Australia. He was in New Zealand,
Mm-hmm.
and something I heard on the Gary Null show. But anyway, the bottom line is that there was a 22-year-old young man who died, who was riding a motorcycle and was in an accident and died.
Right.
They listed it as COVID, and the doctor said, "Well, how do you list it as COVID?" Well, he had COVID, and this could have been a factor in his judgment. And
Right.
that's what you're saying, in essence, that they are labeling what I might call ordinary death as COVID if the person was allegedly COVID positive.
Correct. And then that brings us back to how do you know if they're COVID positive?
Right,
And one way you might say is you have to do a test, right?
right.
Do an antibody test. So we know, for example, that, and in New York, they tell you when they test you, if this test is positive, there's a 50% chance you do not have COVID and never did have COVID. So that's that they upfront antibody test. That's what they tell you. If you go to the CDC, excuse me, the FDA website, because the FDA authorizes these tests. The FDA lists the authorized COVID antibody tests. I went and looked. And it says, well, yeah, the positive predictive value is 48%. What the heck is a positive predictive value? That means if the test says you have COVID, what is the probability that the virus was ever in your system? The answer is 48%. So even if that motorcyclist did have a positive COVID test, the COVID test has a negative predictive value. What does that mean?
Wow.
That means when you have a positive COVID test, your chances of not having COVID are higher than your chances of having COVID.
Got it.
All right.
Now that leads us to
I mean, really,
case with.
you got to let that sink in. I'm
Come
giving
on.
you a test to see if you have something. And if that test says, yes, you have it, your chances of having it are actually less. The probability, if the test is positive, the probability that you have it is less than the probability that you do not have it. So
Hey,
what's
Brother
the
Leroy,
point of the test? If the test is actually predicting that you don't have it.
can I ask a question, Brother Leroy?
Yes.
Is this the same situation, Doc, with the Ohio governor who tested positive when he was supposed to meet the president, and then they ran around and tested him like I don't know, a day, the next day, and he was negative?
That's even worse.
That
That's
just
another,
happened. That just happened like
I
a
know,
couple of
no,
days
I'm
ago.
trying to explain to you. That is another truth about the test that's being exposed. So first, I told you the test is not accurate in terms of predicting if you were exposed to the virus. So in other words, if you test positive for the test, then the probability of you not having the virus is greater than the probability of you having the virus. And what you brought up is another situation which is actually true as well, which is that the test is not reliable. It will be positive 1 minute and positive the next. It literally spews out random results. It will not be consistently positive or negative in any one individual person. You can literally take the same blood sample and test it and test it and test it and retest it. And as many times as you care to retest it, you're going to get different values.
Okay. So the test.
Another joke. Let me tell you a joke here. How do you cure HIV? Answer, repeat the test.
Wow.
So we have tests
Wow.
here that are giving results that are not reproducible. So if you test someone Monday and they test negative, you can test them at 10 a.m. You can test them Monday at 3 p.m. and they'll be positive, and Monday at 6 p.m. they'll be negative again. So literally the results these tests are given are the same as if you just had a roulette wheel and just kept spinning it and spinning it and spinning it. You're just going to get a different result each time you spin the wheel. Whereas the number you get on the roulette wheel has nothing to do with your actual health or anything. And that's what these tests are.
Okay, when your understanding, when the tests are done, let's say last week they tested 500 people in Harlem
Right.
and 100 people came up positive on this test.
Right.
This week they tested 2,000 people
Mm-hmm.
and 300 came positive on the test.
Mm-hmm.
Do they now say that it's spreading, it's increasing because they've done a test on one group of people and they added another group of people the following week and then the numbers go up in terms of positive tests? Is that the
Exactly.
basis?
Exactly. So these tests, which we've already established, are nothing more than random number generators. And when you have a random number generator, let's say you have a random number generator and it generates numbers from 1 to 10. This makes it super simple for you. On Monday, you can say any number it generates from 1 to 3 means that you're sick. Any number from 4 to 10 means that you're healthy. So just by changing that particular criteria, you've changed your percent healthy and percent sick, right?
Mm-hmm.
This test is the same way. If you're looking closely, you will see the definition of a positive test has been changing over time. So
Damn.
literally, the criteria that the test, let's just say the PCR test, which is the most specific, the most sensitive, the most reliable measure, that it measures DNA. And when I say DNA, in your mind pops up, whoa, accurate DNA, right? DNA fingerprinting. They caught the murderer. It's accurate. But wait. So they test two different pieces of DNA. These two pieces together constitute less than 2% of the total DNA in this putative virus. So clearly, then, this DNA test is not specific. For example, a fruit fly and a human has 66% of their DNA in common. If you're only testing 2% of the fruit fly DNA, you can't tell a fruit fly from a human.
Mm.
So they are using the same level of specificity to look for this virus. It gets even better. So then, way back when in March, they said, okay, so these two pieces of genes, if both genes are present, the test is positive. Then they said, well, if only one gene is present, the test is positive. What does that give you? That gives you the big peak in the middle of April and May, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you change the criteria back to you need both genes for the test to be positive. So literally, you can control the appearance of an epidemic or a wave by just changing the criteria you use for interpreting the test.
Exactly.
Right. That's what's being done.
Okay, and the key to my point of view, the
Mm-hmm.
key to this is that when one listens to radio news reports or views them on television,
Uh-huh.
that there is no questioning at all on the part of the talking heads. Not that we expect for them to question, but they do come up with phony questions from time to time to some reporter in the field. That by not questioning as we're doing now, and I'm not no scientist, I'm just asking a normal question of what is a case, what is positive, and by not questioning, it goes as truth to
Correct.
the audience.
Correct.
The incorrect information or the unquestioned questions goes as information. So people come away thinking that there has been this dramatic increase in deaths, dramatic increase, and it's not, the thing is full of holes.
Right. In fact, the deaths as a percent of cases, the case fatality rate has been dropping. Now, the other thing you mentioned, which you glossed right over, is what is a case. A positive test result, again, this is a medical definition. I went to medical school, so how come I can tell you this? A case is only a case if the person has symptoms. So now what they've done, they've redefined that word and they're using a case to represent anyone with a positive test, whether or not they have symptoms.
Right.
So you see how what that does, right?
The more tests you do, the more
No,
this thing is.
listen. You have 10 kids. You test them all, their throat. They all have strep in their throat. One of them has a sore throat. The one that has a sore throat plus the positive strep test is a case. The other 9 are not cases.
Right.
So they're counting people with a positive COVID test who do not have symptoms as a case when they're not truly a case. So to terrify the public, they've changed the definition of case to magnify the appearance of the situation.
Just flesh that one out again.
All right, let's do the COVID. They have the numbers for COVID. You have 100 people who are positive for COVID. 80 of them guaranteed did not have symptoms, will never have symptoms. Those people are being counted as cases. They are being counted as people who have symptoms when actually they are not. So literally, the case number is inflated at least 4-fold.
Damn.
Maybe 5-fold. And that's a generous estimate.
Now, Dr. Jennifer Daniels, ladies and gentlemen, look for her on YouTube.
Wait,
and
no.
she'll.
No, you can look for me if you want to on YouTube, but YouTube has taken away my permission to upload a video. I no longer have permission to upload a video to YouTube. There may be existing videos of me on YouTube still that have not yet been erased. I don't know.
Damn.
Right, but that's the situation. So now I'm on Vimeo and I'm paying Vimeo for the right to put my videos up there. I'm not sure how long that will last. So I have tech people working on developing a platform where I can host and play my videos.
Okay, just a sidebar question, and that is, you've done at least 2 presentations on prostate, how prostate became a business. I think that's the title.
Now, how prostate cancer became a disease. In other words, it was not understood to be a disease. Until the
and the flip side of that, actually, the parallel to that is how it became a business.
That's the next step. First, it became a disease and a business.
So listen, Doc. I'm sorry.
If you're a man and they've convinced you that you have prostate cancer, or even worse, that you need therapy, then you are basically part of somebody's economic success program. That's all you are.
Damn. And colonoscopies.
Just call it sodomy. Call it what it is, sodomy.
Okay.
You know, if you're into that rectal anal experience, I'm not criticizing, no judgment.
Damn.
Go for it. Go for it.
Okay, we're going back to the COVID piece, and that is
there's a lot
you've given us
about COVID. There's a lot to understand. And so the thing about COVID is the problem is so big, the abuse so wide and so far spread, it's just almost impossible for people to get their mind around it, you know, because in order to understand the truth of COVID, you almost have to reevaluate your basis as an adult and your ability to understand and accept and evaluate information.
There are voices speaking out, and they're not necessarily promoted. They'll be on YouTube for a couple of weeks, if that much. You know, I'm talking about doctors who are coming forth.
My own mother strongly disagrees with me. We don't even talk about it. But she told me, she says, Jennifer, there is this deadly virus going around. It's going to wipe out all of humanity, and people won't just wear a mask. Why won't people
Wow.
just wear a mask? If they would just wear a mask, quarantine for a while, it could save the whole human race. But no, people are irresponsible and selfish. So they're going to kill everybody.
Hmm.
She believes us. And it is so embedded in her that I don't even attempt to discuss it. And I would say to
Right.
any listener out there who even believes there's a virus, go for it. Live your life as if there's a virus, but let me live mine the way I want. You go live your
Hmm.
life as if there's a virus. You get whatever shots you think you need to get. You take whatever drugs you think you need to take. Go do it. And if a mask was working, then why would there even be an outbreak in China? Did you know most people in China were wearing a mask before this outbreak
That's right.
because the air pollution was so bad? And did you know this mask is so ineffective? It didn't even work to prevent air pollution from killing people.
Damn.
Right. So people were protesting the air pollution because even though they took personal responsibility to put a mask on and blah, 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 they were still getting sick from the air pollution. So if there is something that's spread by air, we know these masks don't work because, hey, everything spread in China when everyone was wearing a mask. Social distancing, we know it doesn't work. In China, they don't shake hands and hug in the streets when they meet. No, they bow. They bow. Stand back and bow. And so social
Hmm.
distancing didn't work for China. Masks didn't work for China. And now there's fake news going on the internet, which is very irresponsible, saying that the 1918 flu epidemic was solved with social distancing, masking, and hand washing and vaccination.
Hmm.
If you go, and I'm sure YouTube will take it down pretty soon, but if you go and listen to all the videos on the 1918 pandemic, videos that were made, before 2018, then you will find the vaccination. And they interviewed people, contemporaneously, like before 1950, people who survived the pandemic. They said, well, we can't say the vaccines were harmful. We know they sure didn't help. So they knew at that time the vaccines were of absolutely no use, number one. Number two, the masking and the distancing and the sanitation, again, all of them of absolutely no use. Well, then I said to myself, well, what about the virus? Did they isolate the virus? What tests did they use back then? They said, oh, no tests were done. No virus was ever isolated. Well, back up. If you did not isolate a virus and there wasn't even a test for it, how do you know that pandemic was even caused by a virus? So there has been like Zippo zero, not a critical thinking on any of this. When someone said, "Well, what about the 1918 pandemic, the 1918 flu?" And so when people would throw that at my face, I accepted the premise, which was that there was a virus back then and that it was caused by a flu. There was no virus ever isolated, and there's no evidence that there was ever an infectious agent that caused all those deaths. And no one
Man.
ever did figure out what caused all those deaths. But again,
Wow.
all that's thrown at us in a propaganda way, but if you don't ever investigate or ask for confirmation or proof of the premise on which someone is talking to you, then you're a sucker. You'll never get the truth. You're going to fall for every lie all the time.
Now, Doc, in terms of blood type, the question
Okay, so you asked me two
comes.
questions. First of all, we have to take the big picture. And again, when people start throwing BS at you, I mean, they throw so fast and thick that if you don't have your standards set up ahead of time, you can get overwhelmed. I mean, inundated and buried. First thing, have we isolated a virus? As in 2018 or 1918, sorry, answer is no. Do we have evidence? Do we have empirical evidence that this is caused, that the deaths are caused by a virus? Answer, absolutely not. How can you say that? Well, I went to the CDC website. Did you? So if you go to the CDC website and look at their weekly death toll starting in February, going all the way to June 6th, and they stopped counting. So not anymore. But they list how many COVID deaths, and then you have to do a little bit of math here. How many total deaths and the percent that were excess deaths. So you have to do a little bit of math to calculate the total number of excess deaths. There are weeks where the COVID deaths are increasing and excess deaths are decreasing. There are weeks where COVID deaths are way more than excess deaths, and there are weeks where excess deaths are way more than COVID deaths. So if you look at that, there is no evidence that COVID-related deaths are driving excess deaths or causing them or any way related to them. There's no mathematical relationship you can find.
Excess
500
is
COVID deaths, 2,000 excess deaths. I'm like, what's going on here?
okay. Excess is a comparison to the prior year. Is that correct?
Not exactly. Excess deaths is a comparison to 2 years ago, and they even average a couple years in there to help bring the average down. And I say bring the average down. Why? Because the population of the United States is growing. So the number of deaths you expect every year would be growing. So they've got a baseline, which is, again, artificially low. But hey, I'll give them that. I'll give them that. All right. I'm not even going to question that piece. So you have an artificially low baseline. Got that. But even with that baseline, we see that there is no correlation. COVID deaths increase, excess deaths decline. COVID deaths decrease, excess deaths increase. There's no relationship between the two. So you can't make a case that the COVID deaths, even if you believe someone died of COVID, that the COVID deaths are in any way driving or causing the excess deaths. And so what happened, and this is why I'm not the only one who got an A+ in 4th grade math here, right?
Go ahead.
So someone else is looking at these numbers, not me, because I don't count. I don't count. I know I don't count. I have no problem with that. But someone else is looking at these numbers and saying, whoa, 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 whoa. And then you break all the other numbers down. So they have numbers by state. You had the virus. If you're in Atlanta, laying in a nursing home, 2% death rate if you're virus positive. New York State, laying in a nursing home, 98% death if you test positive for the virus. Same virus. So what's causing your death? Not the virus, the location. So again, these numbers are all out there on the internet to anyone who wants to look at them. And people are instead glued to 6 o'clock news, and no one's saying, show me the numbers. If you went to work, you would tell your boss, show me the money. You're going to pay me? Where's my money? Where's my paycheck? You need to ask the same thing of the news. Show me the numbers. And even better than that, though, you need to know what numbers to ask for. So ask for the numbers death by state in people who are similarly situated. So COVID positive, laying in a nursing home in one state, right? If you're laying in a nursing home and you're COVID positive, that's some pretty comprehensive information there, right? That person is debilitated. That person is on their way out. Okay, so you have COVID positive, laying in a nursing home bed. In one state, 98% death rate. Now, mind you, we know that positive test, only half those folks even had the virus. How could all 98% of them die of the virus?
Right.
At best, if they only die of the virus, that death rate would be 50% of the COVID positive rate. But no, what we have going on is we have certain individuals who shall remain nameless, because I don't know, I wasn't there, killing people to create the deaths. Killing people. And we know by now, it's no secret, if you intubate somebody who's COVID positive with respiratory problems, they're going to die. All right? They're going to die. If you don't intubate them but give them high pressure oxygen by mask, they're going to live. We know that. That's like not a problem. In New York State, doctors were forced and ordered to put everybody on a ventilator. So the deaths in New York all happened by direction of government order and people in government custody. So if you look at that, then the only protection for you, if you don't want to die of COVID, is avoid government custody and stay out of a nursing home. And and don't get on a ventilator. And now, if you're a little more forward thinking than that, then you would see refuse all medical therapy. And there's folks in Mexico, they're saying now, we'd rather die at home, thank you. We're going to stay home.
Damn.
Oh yeah.
Go back, Doc. Incubate. Incubate means what?
It means to grow. It means to start out at a small size of no consequence and become bigger and bigger and bigger until finally it becomes a problem and creates symptoms. So you can think of it as a baby basically starts out with a sperm and an egg get together and it incubates inside the mother's belly and bam, a baby is born. So it's the exact same process. And so the incubation period is a time between when the person, when the illness causing agent enters a person's body and when it reproduces large enough to cause that person's symptoms.
Oh.
That's the incubation period. That's another problem. If you look at all the data, again, you look at the data, again, start with February 1st is good. They show increase COVID death rate, no increase infection, increase COVID death rate. I mean, it's like happens the same day. There's no allowance, there's no delay for incubation, which they say is 4 to 14 days. So the curve of death and the curve of positive tests are instantaneously synchronized. What does that tell you? That tells you that the deaths are happening immediately. This is not an infectious agent with an incubation period that's causing the deaths.
Mm-hmm.
You test people, they test positive. Okay, we're going to kill so many of them. Okay, there you go. You guys are dead. Bye. That's what's happening. Again, this is all in the data. It's all in the graphs. If there really was an infectious agent, you have two periods of delay. First, it takes one person time to spread it to another person. It's not like I blink and you've got it. So most people, what do? They get dressed, they get in their car, only them in the car, drive to work, only them, get in their cubicle, only them, work all day long, and go home. Literally, your average person with, say, a corporate job, they don't even have the opportunity to spread it to more than one or two people. And with the infectivity rate being so low, it's going to die out. They don't have the opportunity to spread. And then I might contact you and give you the illness, but guess what? Someone else in my group already contacted you and gave you the illness. So there's not opportunity for spread. Most people have a very narrow social reach.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have 10 people in a small group. Once they've infected all 10, that's pretty much it. That's it. That's all there is to it. There's nothing else. Because their level of social contact is so limited. But,
okay.
But all I'm saying is this. You have the number of cases go up. The death should lag behind the cases by actually 2 to 4 weeks. Because you've got the delay between one person infecting the next person, and then you have another delay between that person dying, and then even worse, another delay, which is that the virus, such as it is so minimally deadly. In other words, it's less deadly to have it than to not have it. So once you mathematically put together all the premises they gave you for the virus, the data doesn't fit it. So either the virus does not exist. That's it. The virus doesn't exist. So it settles it.
Okay. Blood type. This is.
Okay, back to that story. Okay. So now the question is, what about blood type? What about plasma therapy? Blah, 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 blah. If you've already established the virus does not exist, okay, we've already established it does not exist. So let's let's have some intellectual rigor here, all right? We don't need a Harvard degree for this one. But if the virus does not exist, our next question is, what about all these proposed therapies? Well, these proposed therapies are simply preying upon your fear. And so depending on how fearful you are, it's going to mandate how much money you're willing to spend, or even worse, force your government to spend on your behalf. And so what's really going on here is how big is your fear? Is your fear big enough for me to stab you in the arm and pump someone else's blood into you that you don't even know? Is your fear, big enough for me to get to stab you with a needle full of other crap? How big is your fear? And that's really what the question is. And people are being asked, and we're going to find out how big is their fear.
Okay, they're Scientific American.
Same thing. Just pile it on, because we've already established from the available epidemiological data that there is no virus. Now, so once you've established there's no virus, then how can your genes predispose you to get a virus that does not exist? It won't be the first time American Scientific American missed it. All right, so don't worry about it.
Okay, now I'm going back. The virus existing, the virus not existing. What's the criteria? What's the measurement of it existing or not existing?
Okay, so what do we mean? What do I mean when I say not exist? I actually had a discussion with a friend I thought was sensible. He said, Jennifer, the virus exists. It does exist. You can't say this thing. I can say what I want. But at any rate, so what I am saying is there is not an infectious agent transferring person to person causing death in the United States. We know conclusively that is not the case based on available data. Based on the CDC data that they themselves willfully stopped publishing as of June 6th. Because they realized, like I'm pointing out to you, the data was embarrassing.
Yeah.
In case anybody looked at it. They actually stopped publishing. I go back to the site to look. You guys want an update? No. It's on another website. So now you go to the other website, which is now they've had Johns Hopkins talk about the fox guarding the hen house. So Johns Hopkins is in charge of the data, and they have scrambled it even worse. So they're not even counting the same thing anymore, and the numbers are not comparable.
Okay, infectious agent is the key to whether or not a virus exists.
Well, I don't understand the question.
No, I said, if a scientist, a doctor, whatever, they're looking at quote, what might be out there, and the supposition is a virus, the measurement of whether it's a virus or not is if there is the presence of an infectious agent.
The virus, if the virus is present, correct. So none of the tests that we've been relying on actually test for the virus, actually identify the virus. Again, it's like I told you, the fruit fly and humans, 66% DNA identical, 66%. And so this test measures 2% of that fruit fly DNA. You cannot, with that sampling, distinguish a fruit fly from a human. You really think you can identify a virus? Of course not.
Okay, so I am very, very naive.
Yes.
How do they get away with it? How is it that scientists, doctors who know what you know and more, how is it that we don't, how come the only voice, one of the only voices we're hearing is a lady down in Panama?
Why do you think she's in Panama?
Why
do you think she's in Panama?
Oh man!
And all the doctors know that if they start talking the talk I'm talking, they're gonna be they may not be in Panama, maybe Nicaragua, maybe Peru, maybe I don't know.
Man, oh man. Okay. I'm going to the comorbid people,
Right.
diabetes, high blood pressure,
Right.
asthma, etc.
Right.
And as much as you can, what
Let me tell them really
should the
quickly. You need to treat your comorbid condition because that's what's killing you. The virus is not. The virus does not exist.
okay, they
Mask
say I'm treating it. They
No, no,
say
they're
I'm
not.
treating
They're
it.
not. They're not. I'm telling you, they're not. If you were treating your diabetes, you wouldn't have it anymore. This person's lying to themselves. And when you start
Oh
lying to
man.
yourself, you set yourself up to be lied to by everyone else.
Wow.
So these people need some tough talk because what's going to happen is they're going to show up at their doctor's office and they're going to get killed. And that's what's going to kill them. It is not a virus. Like my brother, he's diabetic. His following his doctor's instructions for his diabetes puts him in the hospital from an insulin overdose at least 4 times a year.
Mm,
Last time put him in a coma. Really? He's worried about COVID. I'm like,
mm,
I can't even talk to you about that. I'm like, yeah, well, Matt, I wish you the best. Yeah, okay.
mm. Okay. So I'm dealing with a basic approach.
Right.
The overweight person, they're obviously overweight and they smoke. What are some of the things that a
Switch
doctor?
their brand. If you want to know what a doctor's going to tell them, you go talk to someone else. I'm going to tell them to do to help themselves.
Say
You
that
know,
again. Say that again.
if you want to know what they can do to help themselves, I can tell you that. But what a doctor's going to tell them to do is just basically, kill it.
Okay, then that's how I'm asking the question. What can they do to help themselves? The overweight person,
Overweight
female,
smoke. Overweight smoke.
female, and smokes.
Right. Switch to American Spirit organic cigarettes. Those cigarettes do not have the added chemicals that the cigarette industry puts in. Cigarette tobacco is actually harmless. It is the chemicals they put in the tobacco that are killing you. So, reach a little deeper in your pocket and smoke organic American Spirits. Number one. Number two, the reason you are overweight is because the food you are eating is so low in nutritional value that you have a desire to eat more of it. Your body's
Right,
hoping to get enough nutrition. So you've got to
right.
stop eating the low nutrition content food that you are eating. The other thing, if you're overweight, is I would take a look at your bowel movements. Poop 3 times a day. My husband, when I got him pooping 3 times a day instead of 2 times a week, he lost a pound a day every day for 60 days consecutively.
Mm,
Yes.
mm,
Oh, he thought I was a genius. But
beautiful.
1 pound of poo in the toilet is 1 pound off your body. So, yeah, really, truthfully. So you want to
Okay.
drink more water, poop more often. You go to vitalitycapsules.com. I got some pills. People actually call them poop pills, vitality capsules. And if you're that far overweight, get extra strength.
Mm-hmm.
But that's
Mm-hmm.
what that person can do. And those two things alone will turn it around for them. It'll get rid of their weight problem, but even better, when you get a load of the $24 a pack American Spirit cigarettes, you're like, well, wait a minute, let's just make these things last. Now, also,
Mm-hmm.
the American Spirit cigarettes do not have the flame agent that makes the cigarette keep burning, 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 burning. So people who are smoking, say, a pack a day can switch to American Spirit and immediately go down to like 4 or 5 cigarettes a day.
Mm,
And then they can taper themselves off from there.
right. Okay, an asthmatic.
Yeah. So, an asthmatic, the problem with the asthmatic is they are inhaling and eating crap that's interfering with their breathing. So, what they need to do is they need to stop all dairy and dairy products. That's like milk, cheese, sour cream, ice cream, anything made from the milk of a cow. Just stop it. Then
Okay.
they need to increase their water. They can calculate their needs by their body weight divided by 50. That's how many quarts a day they drink. And since they're asthmatic, they can add another quart on top of that, which will keep them even more hydrated. That's going to help their breathing. But then they should go to vitalitycapsules.com and get the free turpentine report. Many asthmatics have told me that
Okay.
turpentine has greatly helped their asthma.
Okay. All right. The diabetic.
You know, I am so through with those people. So they can go to vitalitycapsules.com as well, download the report, and just follow the diet in the report. And most people, their diabetes will be gone in 2 weeks or less.
Mm.
That's if you're type 2. If you're type 1, it's a little more challenging. But type 2, easy beans. If you're type 2
What?
diabetic, you are your own problem.
Explain that for the audience. Type two.
I don't understand. So type
I'm
2,
sorry.
there's two types of diabetes. There's the juvenile onset diabetes, and then there's the adult onset diabetes. So adult onset diabetes is known as type 2. So the diabetes caused 100% by diet is the type 2 diabetes. And that's most diabetics, about 95% are type 2 diabetics.
Okay. All right. Um, what have we? Okay. Oh, the other thing is this information that's available to the public if they know where the information is.
So all of my
Medscape,
information I've gotten is available to the public. I've used public sources for everything.
right, and Medscape is one.
Oh yeah, Medscape is cool.
Okay, tell us the value of that.
Oh, the value of Medscape is people are presented with the impression that science is objective, that it's factual, and that there's agreement. None of those three are true. None of them are true. And when you read Medscape on a particular topic, like the testing, I mean, they actually have an article. Has the FDA let us down? That
Mm,
the tests are worthless, and that the doctors don't even know how to interpret the test. How the test is interpreted is a matter of politics. One day, a
mm,
positive test means you're immune. Another day, it means you're infectious. Another day, it means you're going to get sick. Another day, it means you were already sick. So they constantly change the meaning of the test. And having no scientific basis, by the way, for changing the meaning. But if you go on Medscape and you look up things like this, then you will see the level of uncertainty, the level of inconsistency, the level of arbitrary changes. And that will maybe give you a little more confidence in coming up with your own darn theory.
right.
I mean, they're making it up. Why don't you make it up? Maybe you can make up a happy ending for yourself.
Mm. Um, one last theory, and that is stress. What would you advise? Would it be different for females and different for males? And
No,
if so, what would
no.
you?
Men, they lost the men, they threw in the towel decades ago. That's really unfortunate. So the American male stopped being a male, I would say somewhere around 1977.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a long time. They were sold this whole metrosexual hype, carry a purse, go shopping. You're defined by your watch and your clothes and your thises and your that's. And the idea that a man is supposed to defend a woman and protect her and care for her, that just went right out the window between 75 and 77. So, and then part of the civil rights movement fallout was the equality of the sexes. Take off your pants, I'll take off my skirt. Yeah, we both look the same. Uh, People were actually sold on that as being true. And as such, men stepped down, and much of ordinary male behavior was criminalized and declared inappropriate. So men, they have given up the ghost a long time ago, and I think most American men are in a state of serious confusion.
A
What can you
serious what?
confusion? They're confused. They think that the only thing they can do in life is go to work and earn money. Period. Done. That's it. There's nothing else for them, which is very sad. So to that, I would say for the men, they need to, and women too, need to eat a high cholesterol, high liver diet. What that's going to do is it's going to get your adrenal glands going. It's going to, for men, give them more testosterone. For women, give them more estrogen. And also, it's going to really fuel a lot of creativity and mental activity that will help people figure out a way for them to go forward and live their lives. So, what's the cure for stress? The cure for stress really is turning off all technology. Just get a separation between yourself and the noise, whether it's your cell phone, your computer, your iPad, your radio, your television, whatever it is. Totally unplug for at least 24 hours, and you will see a day and night difference in your stress.
Mm.
That's number one. Number two is develop friends who accept you the way you are. You don't need one that says, you got to think the way I think or blah, blah, blah. No. And you need to call up that friend every day, just check in, and the conversation goes something like this. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing pretty well. The next person says, wow, I'm so glad to hear you're feeling well. I just wanted to check with you. I want to make sure you're okay and let you know I still care about you. That's pretty much the whole conversation. You can embellish it if you want to, but you want to make that, do it every single day. You can make it at the same time if you want to. But the point is this, to realize that as long as your little friend, whoever it is alive and kicking, then the world is okay. And that's really going to help you pull through a lot of stuff. And that's pretty simple.
Hmm. Vitamin A.
It's in the liver.
Okay.
Hmm.
Astragalus.
Waste of time.
Because.
Because the fundamental problem is malnutrition, and there's no nutritional value in astragalus. So a lot of these fancy dancy herbs, whether it's astragalus or ginger or blah 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 blah, they help your body optimize the existing nutrients. When you don't have any nutrients, well, there you go. Now you tell me you're wasting your time.
Right. Oh, you're putting the cart before the horse. That's what you're saying.
Right, you got it all upside down and backwards. And so for most people in the United States, their nutritional status is so low that taking these adaptogens are, it's not going to help because their nutritional content of their food is so low.
And in light of that, that's where we come into organic, inorganic, or we broaden our selection of foods to include cilantro or different fruits from the tropics, etc. Your comment.
If you don't live in the tropics, you shouldn't be eating food from the tropics. That's,
Wow.
yeah, just shut that. They say shut that crap down right now. But
Wow.
cilantro does grow up in the north, and but the correspondence of cilantro up north is parsley and celery. So every geographic region has its own set of herbs that are more or less equal to the herbs in any other geographic
Got it.
climate. The idea that you have to go to China or you have to go to the tropics to find your herbal cures is, excuse the expression, utter nonsense. And again, it's a marketing tool to get you to pay $1,000 a pint for something you could get in your own backyard for $6 a pint.
Damn.
Right. It's. I'm telling you, it's a big business. This is it's amazing business. So as far as organic, not organic, you need to understand the same government that bought you COVID is also bringing you the organic label.
Damn.
So how much can you really rely on that? I think people need to get real. You need to start growing your own food. If it's a shoebox of dirt
Okay.
on your
Okay.
windowsill or in your closet or sprouting organic beans,
Got it.
you know, you've got people have got to take control of their food supply.
Dr. Jennifer Daniels, folks hearing you will want to know how to make contact with you for consultation, contact with you for other shows to be interviewed. And you mentioned vitality capsules. Share
Uh,
with us how folks can follow up.
Go to vitalitycapsules.com, and from that page, you can click on the Candida Cleaner Report, get your free report on how to heal with turpentine. You can click appointment to make an appointment. You can click contact us to, let me know about radio shows or whatever else is on your mind.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
This has been great, sis.
you're welcome. I hope it's been helpful.
This has been
You guys
very,
are in
very
a
helpful.
heap of, you guys are in a heap of trouble up there. You need some help. You
Wait a
got to
minute.
help yourself. The cavalry is not coming. I just want to let you know the cavalry has been told to stand down. The cavalry is
Um,
not coming.
Dr. Jennifer, I'm doing something incorrectly, and that is, Doug, do you have a question for the doc?
No, the doc answered my question about when she spoke about the Ohio governor who was positive and negative in one day.
All right, beautiful. So that's the voice of the Oracle of Doug. And Dr. Jennifer Daniels, once again, may God continue to bless you and your family. Thank you for joining us on the Wisdom Table, coming to you from Grand Houses in Harlem, USA. God bless you, sis.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye bye.
Bye now. And ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, we remind you to access Minister Farrakhan's presentation July 4th. He deals with vaccinations and et cetera. Minister